In 2024, a research team lowered a swarm of autonomous robots into the deepest hole on the surface of the Earth. No cables, no pilots, no human being anywhere near the bottom. Just machines, dropping alone into 7 miles of black water, into a place where the pressure could crush a submarine like a soda can, and the sunlight has never once reached in the entire history of the planet. The robots were supposed to map the mud. That was the mission. Swim along the floor, take some samples, film a little sediment, come home. Routine. Boring, even by the standards of deep-sea science. Then, one of the cameras caught something moving. It came out of the dark at the very edge of the light, low to the seafloor, and it was the wrong size. Not the wrong size for a fish, the wrong size for anything that is supposed to exist that deep. The robot's light swept past it for less than 2 seconds, and in those 2 seconds the machine recorded a shape that, when it was played back on the surface, made an entire room full of scientists go completely silent. They didn't publish that footage, not right away. According to people who were reportedly in that room, one of the senior researchers stood up, walked out, and did not come back for the rest of the day. And that was only the first robot. That was only the first dive. Because over the following weeks, as more machines went down and more footage came back, the team began to assemble a record of the Mariana Trench that does not match anything in the textbooks. Creatures with no name and no classification. Animals that grow to impossible sizes in the dark. A shadow, caught on sonar, the length of a school bus, moving with the deliberate speed of a predator. And near the very bottom, in the deepest, coldest, most crushing point on Earth, a shape that several people who saw it refused to describe as an animal at all. This is the story of what those robots found at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. And by the end of it, you're going to understand why one of the scientists connected to the project allegedly requested that certain recordings be sealed, why the phrase, "we were not the first thing to notice the robots," started circulating among the dive team, and why the deepest place on our own planet may be the single most misunderstood location in the known universe. Stay with me, because it escalates. To understand why the robots changed everything, you first have to understand why nobody had ever really seen the bottom of the Mariana Trench before them. And once you understand that, everything that comes next stops sounding impossible and starts sounding inevitable. The Mariana Trench sits in the Western Pacific, a crescent-shaped scar in the ocean floor about 1,500 miles long, curving southeast of Japan and down toward Guam. At its lowest point, a place called the Challenger Deep, it plunges to nearly 36,000 feet. That's just under 7 miles straight down. If you could pick up Mount Everest and drop it into the trench, the summit, the highest point on the surface of the Earth, would still sit more than a mile beneath the waves. It would drown completely with room to spare. But depth is only the beginning of what makes this place different from anywhere else humans have tried to go. At the bottom of the trench, the water pressure is more than 1,000 times greater than it is at sea level. The scientists describe it as the weight of roughly 8 tons pressing down on every single square inch. Imagine stacking 100 grown adults on the tip of your thumb. That is the environment. It is a pressure so extreme that it changes the chemistry of the water itself, so extreme that it dissolves bone and shell, so extreme that for most of modern history, scientists were absolutely certain nothing could survive there at all. It is also completely, permanently dark. Sunlight is gone by about 3,000 feet. The Challenger Deep is more than 10 times deeper than that. No light has ever touched the bottom, not once. Not in 200 million years. The temperature holds just above freezing, a constant, lifeless cold, and the food is so scarce that most of the trench floor is, by every reasonable expectation, a desert. Here is the part that matters. In the entire history of human exploration, only a handful of people have ever physically reached the bottom of the Challenger Deep. More human beings have walked on the surface of the moon than have stood at the bottom of that trench. Every one of those descents lasted a few hours at most. A few hours to explore a canyon larger than the Grand Canyon, in total darkness, using the beam of a single light. Think about what that actually means. We have better maps of the surface of Mars than we have of the floor of the Mariana Trench. We have photographed Pluto, 3 billion miles away, in higher resolution than we have photographed the deepest point of our own ocean. Scientists estimate that only a tiny fraction of the deep sea has ever been seen by human eyes, and of everything that lives down there, they believe the overwhelming majority, some estimates run past 90%, has never been cataloged, never been named, never been seen at all. So when a team finally built machines that could stay down there not for a few hours, but for days, machines that could crawl and swim and hover in the dark without a fragile human being inside them to worry about, they didn't just get a better look at a place we already understood. They opened a door into a place we had barely looked at. And something was on the other side of that door. The first thing the robots found was life. Not the microbial slime scientists expected. Life that moved and watched and vanished. The early footage was subtle. A pale shape drifting at the edge of the frame. A ripple in the sediment where something had been resting a moment before the light arrived. The machines were quiet, quieter than any crewed submarine, because there was no life support system humming, no crew shifting their weight, and that silence meant that for the first time, the deep was being observed by something it didn't seem to notice. Then the creatures started coming into focus. There was a fish with no face. That's the closest description anyone could give it, a smooth, pale, eyeless thing that moved along the bottom with no visible features at all, feeling its way through the mud. There were gelatinous animals, transparent from end to end, so delicate that no human collection had ever brought one to the surface intact, because the change in pressure destroys them before they arrive. On the surface, they are a smear of jelly. Down there, alive, in the robot's light, they pulse and glow and drift like something out of a fever dream. The robots filmed creatures the surface world had only ever seen as fragments, a piece of a body tangled in a net, a half-digested shape in the stomach of a deeper animal. Now, for the first time, they were being filmed whole and alive and behaving. Ghostly white octopuses with no ink sacs, because there is nothing down there to hide from with a cloud of ink, nothing they had ever met, at least. Snailfish, translucent, their organs visible through their skin, hovering at depths where scientists once swore no fish with a backbone could exist. The pressure at those depths should turn a vertebrate's bones to jelly. And yet there they were, thriving, exactly where the textbook said life had to stop. And here is where the footage got strange, because the robots kept catching things at the very edge of the light that did not stay to be identified, shapes that moved with purpose. Something that darted out of frame the instant the beam touched it. Not the slow drift of a jellyfish caught in a current, but the fast, deliberate flick of an animal that had decided in that moment that it did not want to be seen. On one recording, a machine's light passed across a patch of open seafloor, and in the frame there is a pair of reflections. 2 points of light, close together, at the height where eyes would be, angled directly back at the camera. When the robot turned to look, the seafloor was empty. The scientists had a term for these. They called them the ones that watched back. Not because anyone believed at that point that anything intelligent was down there, but because over and over, the machines came home with footage of animals that seemed to be aware of the machines before the machines were aware of them. The deep sea is a place where most creatures have never encountered a predator with a light, and yet something down there behaved as though it had learned, very quickly, that the light meant it was being seen, and that being seen was a thing to avoid. That was the first shock. The trench wasn't a desert. It was crowded. It was alive in a way nobody had prepared for. And the animals in it were not the sluggish, half-dead scavengers everyone had imagined clinging to the bottom of the world. They were fast, they were aware, and some of them, it turned out, were enormous. The second discovery is one that science has a name for, and that name is the reason the rest of this story is so hard to dismiss. It's called deep sea gigantism. And once the robots started documenting it, the scale of what lives down there stopped being a curiosity and started being a warning. Here is the phenomenon. In the deep ocean, certain animals grow far, far larger than their relatives anywhere else on Earth. A creature that is the size of your fingernail in shallow water becomes the size of your hand in the deep. A creature the size of your hand becomes the size of a dinner plate. Scientists still argue about exactly why. The cold slows the metabolism, which lets animals live far longer. And the longer they live, the larger they grow. The pressure changes how their cells are built. Food is so scarce that being big enough to eat anything you find, of any size, becomes an advantage. Whatever the cause, the result is a place where the normal rules of size simply do not apply. The robots documented it directly. Take the amphipod, a shrimp-like crustacean that, in most of the world's oceans, is a few millimeters long, something you'd need to squint to notice. In the Mariana Trench, the robots filmed amphipods the length of a human forearm. The scientists call them supergiants, and there is no gentle way to describe the experience of watching one crawl into frame. It is a shrimp the size of a small dog, pale and armored, and it should not exist. It builds a coat of armor for itself out of aluminum actual metal that it extracts from the mud on the seafloor, the only animal on Earth known to do it. That is not a monster from a story. That is a real, documented, filmed inhabitant of the trench. Then there are the xenophyophores. This is one of the strangest facts in all of biology, and I need you to sit with it for a second. There is an organism on the floor of the Mariana Trench that grows to the size of a football, 8 inches, 10 inches across, and it is a single cell. One cell. Not a colony, not a cluster of tiny animals. One living cell the size of your hand, sprawling across the mud in shapes that look, in the robot's light, like something that was designed rather than grown. They coat the deepest parts of the trench like alien flowers, and they are found nowhere on the surface of the planet in anything close to that size, because only the deep can grow them that big. And these are the giants we can explain. Because the robots also brought back footage of things that the scientists could not fit into the catalog at all. On more than one dive, a machine's sonar registered a large, soft-bodied contact moving through the water column above it. Something big, something that never came fully into the light, something that the sensors logged and the cameras almost caught. The giant squid, the legendary kraken of sailors' stories, is real, and it lives in the deep, and it grows to more than 40 feet, with eyes the size of dinner plates. The largest eyes of any animal that has ever lived evolved that large specifically to gather the tiniest scraps of light in a world that has almost none. And the colossal squid, its heavier cousin, is larger still. These are not myths. These are animals that science accepts. And they are proof of a principle that becomes very important in a moment. The deep ocean is capable of hiding enormous predators for centuries in plain sight, and only surrendering the evidence by accident. So, when the robots started logging contacts that were bigger than a giant squid, contacts with a hard, dense signature, contacts that moved not like a drifting mass of tentacles, but like something with a spine and a purpose, the team had to ask a question that no serious scientist ever wants to ask out loud. If the deep can grow a shrimp into a monster, and grow a single cell to the size of a football, and hide a 40-foot squid for the entire history of civilization, what else is it hiding? And how big has it been allowed to become? Now we get to the part that even the most careful people on the project stopped being willing to talk about on the record. There is a creature that science declared extinct millions of years ago. It was the largest predatory shark that ever lived, a fish the length of a school bus, with a mouth wide enough for a grown man to stand inside without ducking, and teeth the size of a human hand. Its name means big tooth, megalodon, and the official position of every marine biologist on the planet is that it has been gone for over 3 million years, that it died out when the oceans cooled, and that it is never, under any circumstances, coming back. The official position is almost certainly correct, but I need to tell you what the robots recorded, and I need to tell you what has been reported by the people who work in the deep, because the escalation of this story runs directly through this creature, and the trench is exactly the kind of place that a story like this refuses to die. Start with the tooth. In the 1870s, the same expedition that first discovered the Mariana Trench, the crew of the HMS Challenger dredged up teeth from megalodon off the floor of the deep Pacific. And when those teeth were later dated using the manganese crust that had grown over them, some of them came back far younger than they should have been, not 3 million years old. By some contested measurements, as young as 10,000 years, maybe less. Mainstream scientists argue the dating method was flawed. But the teeth are real, and they were found in the deep, and the number has haunted the edges of marine biology ever since. Because if that number is right, then Megalodon did not go extinct with the dinosaurs of the sea. It survived into the age of human beings. And the only place large enough, dark enough, and unexplored enough to hide something that size would be exactly the place these robots were sent. Now the sightings. For over a century, sailors, fishermen, and deep-sea crews have reported encounters with sharks that are simply too large to be any known species. In the 1910s, a fishing crew off the coast of Australia reportedly refused to go back out to sea after describing a ghostly white shark, longer than their 80-foot boat, that rose beneath their vessel and took their crab pots, lines, traps, and all in a single motion. A shark that large has never been officially caught. But the great white, the largest predatory shark science recognizes, tops out at around 20 feet. The animal those men described was 4 times that length, and they were not the last to describe it. Then there are the carcasses. The robots, on several dives, filmed the remains of large animals on the trench floor whale falls, the sunken bodies of great whales that die and drift down into the deep, feeding an entire ecosystem for decades. On at least one of these, according to reports from the dive team, the bite marks did not match any known predator. The wounds were too wide. The spacing between the tooth marks was too great. Something had fed on that whale, something with a bite radius that, when the analysts scaled it up, implied a mouth several feet across. A mouth the size of a doorway. There is no living animal in the scientific record with a bite that size. There is only one animal in the entire fossil record that fits, and it is supposed to be extinct. And then there is the sonar contact. On one of the deeper dives, a robot's acoustic sensors logged a solid, hard-bodied object passing at a distance in the black water, an object that the software measured at approximately the length of a school bus. It was not a squid. The signature was wrong. Too dense, too solid. It was not a whale. Whales must surface to breathe, and nothing surfaced. It moved with the slow, patrolling, unhurried motion of an apex predator that has nothing in its world to fear. It crossed the edge of the sensor range once, and then it was gone, back into the dark, and the machine's cameras pointed the wrong way never caught it. The scientists will tell you, correctly, that there is no confirmed evidence megalodon survives, that the tooth dating is disputed, that the sightings are unverified, that the bite marks could have another explanation, that the sonar contact was probably a large, ordinary animal at a bad angle. Every single one of those objections is reasonable. Every single one of them is the official answer. But here is the thing about the official answer. The official answer, for 200 years, was also that nothing could live at the bottom of the trench at all. The official answer was that the deep was a desert. The official answer was that a shrimp could never grow to the size of a dog, and that a single cell could never grow to the size of a football, and that a fish with a backbone could never survive the pressure of the Challenger Deep. The official answer was wrong about all of it. The deep kept its secrets until the machines came, and then it gave them up one impossible piece at a time. So, when a robot's sonar logs something the length of a bus, patrolling the dark, in the one place on Earth vast enough to hide it, the honest scientific position is not that it's impossible. The honest scientific position is that we don't know, and "we don't know" at the bottom of the Mariana Trench is the most frightening sentence in the English language, because it turned out the shark was not the strangest thing down there, not by a long way. Everything I've told you so far has an explanation. Strange, unsettling, larger than anyone wanted but explainable. Mysterious creatures are just undiscovered biology. Giants are just deep-sea gigantism. Even the megalodon, as impossible as it sounds, would still just be an animal, a big, old, surviving animal the way the coelacanth was. A fish everyone believed had been extinct for 65 million years, until a fisherman pulled a living one out of the water in 1938. What the robots found at the very bottom does not have an explanation. And this is the part that the title of this video is really about. It started with the structures. On the deepest dives, the machines that were mapping the floor of the Challenger Deep returned sonar imagery of the sediment, and the imagery showed something that geologists could not comfortably classify. Straight lines, right angles, rectangular formations arranged across the seafloor in patterns that did not match the surrounding rock, at a depth where no human being had ever laid eyes on the ground. The official interpretation when it came was that these were the fractured edges of an ancient underwater landslide natural geometry, the broken edges of collapsed rock slabs, nothing more. And that interpretation is plausible. Nature makes straight lines sometimes. It makes crystals and basalt columns and fractures that look almost engineered. But the lines were very straight. The angles were very consistent. And they sat in the deepest, most inaccessible, most impossible to reach location on the entire surface of the Earth, which is precisely where you would put something if you did not want it found. The team went back for a closer look, and that is when the cameras caught the silhouette. It was standing near one of the formations, at the edge of the light, and it was upright, not lying on the floor like a fish, not drifting like a jelly. Upright, with a long body, and according to the people who have described the footage, a distinct division near the top that the human brain immediately, instinctively, reads as a head. When the robot's light moved toward it, it did not flee the way the fish fled. It did not dart. It moved once, smoothly, deliberately, to the side, in a way that one analyst reportedly described with a single sentence, "It stepped out of the light." Not swam, stepped. The scientists have been extremely careful about this footage, and I am going to be careful too, because there is a rational explanation for almost everything, and the human brain is desperate to see faces and figures in the dark. Pareidolia. The same instinct that finds a man in the moon and a face in a cloud will absolutely find a humanoid in a blurry 2 seconds of deep-sea video. A sea cucumber can stand upright in a current. A stalked animal anchored to the seafloor can look, for a frame or two, like a standing figure. This is the reasonable answer. This is the answer I would bet on. But there is more than the silhouette. Because on the same series of dives, the robot's instruments recorded something in the water that the team has never been able to fully explain. A pattern. A repeating acoustic signal, low and rhythmic, that did not match the sound of any known animal, any known geological process, any known piece of equipment. It came in bursts. It had structure, the kind of structure that, in any other context, a scientist would call deliberate. When the robots moved toward the source, the signal stopped. When they backed away, after a time, it returned. And on one recording, the machine's own navigation pinged the sound it makes to measure distance, was reportedly answered, not echoed. Answered. A different tone. A response. I want to be clear about what the mainstream explanation is, because it deserves to be said out loud. The mainstream explanation is that this is instrument error, or a whale vocalization refracted through strange water, or a coincidence of geology, or an artifact of the equipment. The mainstream explanation is that there is no humanoid at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, that there is no intelligence down there, that the human brain and the human ear went looking for company in the most isolated place on Earth and, as they always do, found it. The mainstream explanation is probably right. But every single mainstream explanation in this entire story, the desert, the pressure limit, the impossibility of giants was wrong before in exactly this place. And the people who saw the footage, the people who heard the signal answer the ping, the people who watched a shape step out of the light at the bottom of the world, some of them did not come back to work the next day. Some of them, according to the reports, requested that the recordings be sealed. And one of them, allegedly, in a quote that has begun to circulate the way these quotes always do, said the thing that has kept me up since I first read it. We went down there to see what was living at the bottom of the ocean. We did not consider the possibility that something at the bottom of the ocean was waiting to see us. So, let's bring it back up to the surface. Let's put it all together, because the promise in the title of this video was that scientists released robots into the Mariana Trench and that what they found shocked the entire world. And I want to make sure that by now you understand that this was not a promise I made lightly. The mysterious creatures are real. The robots filmed animals with no faces and no names, ghost pale and eyeless, hovering at depths where science swore vertebrate life could not exist, and some of them saw the machines coming before the machines saw them. The giants are real. The supergiant amphipod the length of your forearm is real. The single living cell the size of a football is real. The 40-foot squid with eyes like dinner plates is real, and it is documented, and it is proof that the deep can hide a monster for the whole of human history and only give it up by accident. The shark is not confirmed, but the teeth pulled from the deep Pacific are real, and the disputed dates that put them within the age of humanity are real, and the century of sightings of white sharks 4 times too long are real, and the bite marks on the whale fall that match no living predator are real, and the sonar contact the length of a school bus. Patrolling the dark with the unhurried confidence of something that fears nothing is real, and the only honest thing science can say about it is that it does not know. And the shape at the bottom, the straight lines and the right angles at 36,000 feet, the upright silhouette that stepped out of the light instead of fleeing it, the rhythmic signal that answered the robot's ping with a tone of its own that is real too, recorded, logged, sealed, according to the people who saw it, explained away, according to everyone who did not. Here is what all of it means, and here is the payoff, the thing the entire world took away from the moment those machines came home. For all of human history, we told ourselves a story about the deep. We said it was empty. We said it was dead. We said it was a cold, black, lifeless desert at the bottom of our own planet, a place so hostile that nothing of consequence could possibly be down there, a place we could safely ignore while we pointed our telescopes at Mars and our probes at the edge of the solar system. We spent more time, more money, and more wonder looking away from the Earth than we ever spent looking down into it. And then we built machines brave enough to go where we could not. We took the fragile human body out of the equation, and we sent our eyes down into the dark alone. And the dark, for the first time, showed us what it had been keeping. It wasn't empty. It was full. It was full of life we had never named, sizes we could not explain, predators we thought had died with the ancient oceans, and at the very bottom, in the deepest, the most impossible point on the surface of the world, something that a room full of scientists could not bring themselves to call an animal. The shock wasn't a single creature. The shock was the realization itself. The realization that the least explored place in existence is not some distant moon or some faraway star. It is here. It is on our own planet. It is underwater we have swum in and sailed over and photographed 1,000,000 times from above. And we have no idea, genuinely, completely, no idea what shares it with us. The robots are still down there. New ones go down every year, smaller and smarter and quieter than the last, drifting through the black water on their own power, cameras open, sensors listening. They map the mud, they sample the sediment, and every so often, one of them comes home with 2 seconds of footage that makes a room go silent, or a signal that answers a ping, or a shadow the size of a bus crossing the edge of the sensor range and vanishing back into the dark before the light can turn. The trench is still down there, still 7 miles deep, still crushing, still cold, still black, still by every available measure, almost entirely unseen. And whatever is at the bottom of it, the creatures, the giants, the thing that patrols the dark, the shape that stepped out of the light is still down there too, waiting, the way it has been waiting the entire time. The whole time we told ourselves the deep was empty, it was watching us build the machines that would finally come to look. And now they've looked, and the world will never be able to unsee what the dark was hiding at the bottom of the Mariana Trench.